Struggling with pain or arthritis? What if the answer could be as simple as what's on your plate? Join us for an eye opening interview with certified health and wellness coach Cari Kamp as we dive into the science of inflammation and discover how your diet can play a crucial role in managing pain and boosting your joint health. Don't miss out on these game changing tips to take control of your well being. Hit that subscribe button and tune in to see how you can fight inflammation with every bite. Cari, welcome. It is so nice to have you on. I've been looking forward to this, and I know that you've got so many bits of nuggets and good information that anybody can apply to their life. Would you first, before we dive into everything, give everybody an introduction?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on your podcast today. I'm Cari Kamp. I am a certified health and wellness coach. It's through an accredited program, and it's specifically looking at nutrition and how that can affect our health. And I think for me, my background is I was in medicine, specifically ophthalmology, for many, many years. And then I rolled over to marketing and education. So even though I'm a coach, I'm a true educator because I like people to understand what works for them and maybe what won't be working for them. And so I was diagnosed with prediabetes many years ago. I was thin. I thought I was healthy, and I was only given an option to take medications. And I really wanted to try to change my health with food. And I was able to do that. And so that's why I went and got certified, because I want to be able to help anybody when it comes to arthritis, joint pain, health issues, and really look at the basics of what is happening due to inflammation in different people's bodies.
That's perfect. And I love your story that you don't only, it's like the hair club for men. I'm not only this, but I'm a client. You follow your own advice.
I do. I follow it. And so when I tell my clients, I'm not a hypocrite. I do what I tell you to do so I can help you.
Like perfect. So do you think we should start out just by defining inflammation and defining kind of what it means to be in an inflammatory state?
Yes. And so I'm going to read something because one of the things I really wanted people to understand, because inflammation can go to a cellular form, and there's a lot of different things that can cause inflammation, whether it's food, whether it's something you put on your skin, whether it's an environmental toxin. But I love this because this statement says one of the reasons so many people are dealing with inflammation is because of rapid rise in blood sugar, which causes biochemical changes in the cell. So when we eat certain things, even if it's high amounts of carbs that break down into sugar, what happens is it causes inflammation and a biochemical change in the cell. So really, that's the fundamental of it. Not everybody has the same inflammation through the same foods or the same environments or the same mold chemicals that are there. But the people that do, it can cause a lot of joint pain, arthritis, autoimmune situations. And it's really difficult sometimes to find out what that is.
It really can be. So how do you get to the bottom of that? What kind of questions, what kind of labs, what kind of baseline stuff do you get so you can help figure that out for each individual?
One of the things I do is I do a free complimentary consultation because I want to make sure that people are really ready to make a change. A lot of times we are told that certain things that we're eating in our daily lifestyles are really healthy for us. So what I do is I have them fill out a lengthy kind of lifestyle and health assessment to be able to look at what their lifestyle is now, what they're eating, different protein shakes, whatever it may be, or what they're not eating, but also what are they using as scents and environmental things on their skins that could be causing issues. So I want to know what they're doing. And then I look at their lab work. If they've had labs within the last 6 months, I work with doctors to be able to look at those labs and then see where their levels are not actually optimal. Let's put it that way. So I take it a 1% change every day. And we talk about what recipes do you like? What do you cook or don't you cook? Do you travel? I mean, my husband's a pilot. He's gone half the week. So how does that person eat healthy and be able to be in a healthy state when they're traveling? Or maybe they don't like to cook. How do I help people when it comes to restaurants, traveling, or even going to an event? If you're going to an event, what do you eat? Do you eat before you go? Things like that. So little tips where it doesn't have to be this huge change. It's the compound effect of making tiny little shifts every day. And as you feel better, based on what I'm suggesting for you, now I always want them to connect back with their doctor and not make some huge change, especially if they have some health issues. But it's the small things that add up to big changes. And so I do a 30-day program. Most clients don't need me after 30 days if they really do the work, because it's a lifestyle and not a diet. They're not actually buying prepackaged foods and being on auto ships and all that stuff. They can actually go on a cruise and still feel good and be able to enjoy that without saying, okay, I've got 2 weeks off, and then they feel awful.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really that you are empowering them at the base level and they're then in control. It's not like, oh man, I forgot my shake. Oh man, I
Yes.
forgot my little packet of this or that. So, no, this is not the way you operate.
No.
That's wonderful. Can you tell me? So many people are like, okay, so now we've talked food. What's an inflammatory food? What are some of the big bad boys out there with regard to inflammatory food for the majority? I know that you're going to say that there's some subtleties, but what are the big inflammatory culprits?
So I think we are kind of inundated with a lot of different marketing on what is healthy on the front of the package. And what I empower my clients to do is read the label and to see what's in there. There's over 65 different names of sugar. All those types of sugar cause inflammation in many different types of forms. So the unhealthy, one thing that's really unhealthy that people don't think about is canola oil, vegetable oil. Those types of oils, they have more inflammation to the brain than smoking or sugar. So when
Wow.
people think they're getting small amounts, a couple tablespoons, if that's causing inflammation to the brain, that's causing our whole body not to work as well as it could, whether it's even with mental issues, whether it's depression, anxiety, those types of things. But we want our body to work the best, and we need our brain and our gut to work the best too. So when we have small things like that, which seem like no big deal, canola oil is cheap, but actually it's causing a lot of issues with people. Some people think that gluten is kind of a fad, not to do gluten, but gluten can cause a lot of issues with different clients. Dairy, some people have issues with dairy, some people don't. Some people have an intolerance, some people don't. For me, I can eat dairy, but I know that I'm going to gain some water weight, a couple pounds the next day if I eat too much dairy. So that doesn't mean I'm have an autoimmune or any issue with dairy, but each person is so different. So if we take it out dairy and no longer your face isn't breaking out anymore, or if we take out, say, certain vegetables that cause joint pain, where is that going to change when it comes to what they're coming to see you for, especially for joint pain and arthritis, knees, shoulders, things like that? If we can get them to a place where they don't have that inflammation and they feel better and they're enhancing their result and being able to heal quicker after a procedure with you, who wouldn't want to do that? I know that I would. I'd be like, I wouldn't even know that that's an option. Now that we know that there's an option to get better results based on what I do before and after a procedure with you, what you want to do that. So those are a few things: oils, gluten, dairy. There's a lot of plants. Not that I'm saying that all vegetables are bad by any means, but there are some plants. They're called anti-nutrients. It's like a natural pesticide for plants. They all have them, but some people have some severe reactions. And what happens is it causes inflammations in the joints, and people have some or skin conditions where they have severe dermatitis, things like that. Usually when I'm able to find those that pain, as well as that dermatitis is usually gone within 3 to 4 weeks.
That's impressive. That's really good. I mean, you think I need to eat more vegetables. Isn't that what inflammatory eating is about? But there may be some vegetables for you as an individual. Yeah.
Well, and
So
I
we
think so I think that's the thing is we can't do a cookie cutter approach here. So I never have the same coaching program for anybody because they're all different. I've never, and all my clients have ever had the same coaching program specifically for that reason. Everybody responds to different things. Everybody has a different lifestyle. And based on if they're going in to have a procedure, that's a whole nother type of a coaching program. So
That's exactly the same. People try to say, well, what's it going to be when we've not even met? I don't know you. I don't know what's going on with you and what we're going to entail. And I don't know, for example, the level of the food and health coaching there versus mind coaching versus how many things are we going to have to do with physical therapy and then what's a procedure going to look like. Every person's different. So I love that you're doing this on a very holistic and very granular level with each person. That's how they get results.
well, and why I have great respect for you is you are looking for that and want that for your patients. And that's something that I really appreciate because so many people don't. They just want to put the procedure on the books and get it done. So you are looking out for the best interest of all of your patients and you're giving them the option. Whether they do it or not, that's their choice, but you actually have an option for them to do this. And I don't think people think about that. And so yours is definitely just something that sets you apart. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Working with you is also something that is fantastic. So, thank you. So, we to summarize there on inflammatory things. I know we talked about potentially glutens, potentially dairies, some of the vegetables, depending that the canola oils and the other oils that are not olive oil, but some of those oils that we can also add in things. People have talked about red meat. People have talked about alcohol. Would you touch on those just to say yay, nay on those?
Okay.
Because I know that we both eat red meat.
That we do. So one of the things I do coach on, and so I do a 30-day program. So every day I send out a different educational, scientific based, peer reviewed study or blog, really kind of dispelling the myths that are out there. One of them is on red meat and is it healthy? And going back to kind of the China study where a lot of that came out of, and 10 years later, I think her last name is Minger, Deborah Minger was able to get all the raw data, and most of it was not put in that study. So it does show how it was skewed against red meat, and that's not correct. I have one chart that shows blueberries, kale, apple, and beef. And there's 15 different vitamins and minerals, and beef is number one, 13 out of the 15 of those vitamins and minerals. So it shows that it doesn't have the high amounts of sugar, which causes inflammation. So red meat is very, very healthy. And it's also, people say it's hard on the environment. Well, actually, when you look at the studies, planting and all of the pesticides are actually really hard on the planet as well. So we look at a balance. If somebody doesn't want to eat red meat, that's fine based on what their choice is, but it's not based on being unhealthy. It's very, very healthy. You want to do grass fed if you can, and you buy what you can afford. If you can't afford that, then what you're doing is looking for meat because the toxins are in the fat. So if you're getting a leaner cut of meat, you just are reducing the toxins. So I teach people, let's talk about what you can afford, because not everyone needs to buy the most expensive cuts. We do what we can do in our budget. When it comes to alcohol, so this is a very interesting thing. We talk about, I haven't had any alcohol for 2 years, and it was because I wanted my liver to function the best for my thyroid. And I think one of the things that I learned when I was going through all my coaching and learning, it's called oxidative priority. And when we actually drink alcohol, there's no storage in the body for alcohol anywhere. So even though alcohol is what it is, it's considered toxic to the body. So there's nowhere to store it. It needs to get out of the way. And one of the things that people don't understand is alcohol suppresses your testosterone for up to 24 hours. For all of you that are on testosterone and you're having your wine and your cocktails, you're not getting the benefits of your testosterone. But on the other hand, alcohol increases estrogen dominance. And there's 3 different types of estrogen. One of them is super unhealthy. It really is one of the precursors to prostate cancer, thyroid cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. And what happens is when we get the unhealthy fat that compresses our organs around our belly, a lot of people kind of make a joke and say, hey, it's a beer belly. It's not, it's estrogen. And what happens is our body actually wraps fat around those toxins and protects it, which we don't want that. So really, that's 2 strikes against alcohol, as well as brain fog and all these different things when it comes to alcohol. I'm not saying that nobody should drink alcohol. I just want people to understand what's happening, because when you drink alcohol, if you're having a meal, guess what? That alcohol is being burned first, and all that other food is going into fat storage. So if you're trying to lose weight, or if you want to reduce inflammation, because alcohol is super inflammatory, I have one client that when he has a glass of wine, he has joint pain the next day. So that's a choice. And it's just, I tell people, when you're aware of things, now you can make an educated decision for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do or not to do. I want to educate you on kind of the other side of the coin, how I like to say it, because a lot of times we're only told one thing: have a glass of wine, do this, do that. It's good for you with the antioxidants, but they don't talk about the alcohol, the sulfites, all those things that can really reduce your healing if they're having a procedure with you. And if they don't know it, how can they make the choice that's best for them and be educated?
Absolutely. No, I do have very strict procedure, the befores, the afters on. We want to be as anti-inflammatory as possible when we collect, whether that be your fat, your blood, or your bone marrow. So I do have, this is the stop date, and this is when you can start again if you're going to have alcohol. So I completely agree that that is not realistic for some people for 100% lifestyle thing, but procedure it is. It's that important. So thank you for touching on that.
Sure.
So we've kind of talked about the anti-inflammatory foods. How about some of the environmental things that help kind of round that out? Because I feel like if we talk about just, oh my gosh, I can't eat this, I can't drink this, I can't do all these things, I'm doomed. There have got to be these other things that contribute to inflammation. And we're not going to, I mean, this is mostly a nutrition talk, but let's talk about the other things that do cause inflammation. And therefore, that empowers everybody to say, well, if it's not, I'm not going to eat 100% the most beautiful foods, what else is there?
Okay, so kind of that goes hand in hand. You've got the nutrition. We talked about estrogen dominance. Well, we can get estrogen dominance from perfumes, colognes. Perfume and cologne is actually second only to secondhand smoke when it comes to a carcinogenic, but people are covered in perfume. So that's something that people don't understand. What we put on our skin is our largest organ. If I can smell somebody in front of me who has used Tide in their laundry, they have it all over their skin. They're sleeping in it, they're breathing it, the heavy shampoo smell, whether it's Tide or anything that's in their laundry. Nothing against that, but get the scented free. So I think that's the thing is people don't understand, what are you putting on your skin for lotion? What's as Febreze, scented candles, all those things are in the air and you're breathing them. And guess what? It's going into your cells and is causing a lot of issues with a lot of people. There was a study that came out. They did it on 17-year-old young ladies, and they were all using MAC makeup. And they took them off of MAC makeup for 3 days, and their estrogen dominance number went down 76% just by getting off the makeup that they were putting on their face. So I think that's one thing to be aware of is that we are putting things on our skin, it's absorbing in our skin, and people don't think anything of it because they look at these fashion makeup or whatever it is. So I also talk to people about what are you putting on your skin, as well as how can I help you find other alternatives? If you don't want to change, you don't have to. But if you do want to change, I think one of the biggest things is where do we go? Sunscreens, all these different things that for one are really hurting our reef with all the chemicals. But if they're hurting the reef, they're hurting us too. So that's just another thing because all this adds up to I'm not getting good sleep. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. And when we don't have good sleep, that's all of our hormones just it's kind of like this cascade. We don't sleep well. We aren't eating well. We're putting all these scents. We just have this whole group of things kind of coming against us, but they're so easy to change. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to tell anyone who's listening is it doesn't have to be hard. It can be 1% a day and it doesn't have to be hard. And it's one of those things where I truly walk with them every single day. I want people to know that I'm accessible. So it's not like, hey, I'll see you in 2 weeks. I want to know any little question they have because if they don't have the support, nobody knows what to do and then they just don't do it. Right. So how can we make it easy to get them the best result, but also feel good? I don't know how long I'm going to be here on this earth, but I want to feel good every single day. And that's what my goal is how can I help everybody feel good if they want to and they're willing to make a change in multiple facets of their life. But it doesn't have to be the most expensive thing. It's not like we're all going to the most expensive grocery store. There's lots of different options. If you don't cook, that's fine. I can teach you that too. And so I think doing the best choices that you can every day, and then over time, you see the results and you feel good.
So you have talked about a lot of environmental things, what you put on your skin, the things you smell. We could add to that tobacco, smoking, because it's very important. You've also mentioned sleep. So lack of sleep, we know that that's when we heal. We even look at Eastern medicine and there's every organ on the little clock at 2 a.m. It's the kidneys at 4 a.m. It's the bladder, the whole things. That's when we regenerate ourselves and heal. Stress is a big one. So I know that as a health and wellness coach, you're addressing stressors and just being able to kind of tone that down a little bit. So and exercise, you're talking about that. So all these things are things that are contributors to inflammation. If you don't have exercise, you don't have good sleep, you are 150 pounds overweight and are overfed at that point using tobacco. So it's back in your court. You can control these kind of things, which is contributing to the anti-inflammatory status.
Well, and you made a really good point. A lot of times people feel really discouraged when they're overweight, and they're trying every different diet out there. And they're counting points and they don't know what to eat. And then at the end of the day, they're eating an ice cream sundae because they have the points left. So it's really about looking, hey, you can still eat ice cream. You're just going to make it a little bit differently. And so I think obesity is we have an epidemic now with children and with adults. And what happens is then it's insulin resistance, which is inflammation, which causes not just prediabetes and diabetes, but all sorts of other things. And
Right.
they're really not that motivated maybe to go to the gym. Or when I go to the gym, there's a lot of people that are really trying hard and I've seen them year after year, but they aren't changing what they eat. So when it comes to tobacco, I mean, they're really talking about the heavy metals and things that are getting into our blood and into our cells and being able and how that's really affecting people. And so I think it's really looking at those things on where can you make the small changes that you feel good about yourself. Because what I'm trying to do from the get-go out of the gates is to get clients to a place where 3 to 5 days later they start to feel better, they start to have less pain, and they start to sleep better. And once we have that and kind of get into then they're motivated because they feel empowered. Like you said, that word, I love that word because it is up to them and they do have to make a choice. But sometimes they just need a little bit more support and positive support. I'll never judge. I will never shame. It's all about, okay, you know what? Sometimes people go off the path and celebration dinner or whatever, and they don't feel very good the next day. Usually that's the case. And I'm like, what? It's just a meal. It's not a lifetime. Let's just get back on the horse and where could we have done it different? And if it was okay and it's okay for you and hey, it's a new day, that's it. Let's move on. So I think so many people feel bad and they think, well, I blew it. I'm like, it's just a meal. Let's keep moving and you're going to do great. So where we actually focus and where we support. And yeah, I just want everyone to know that I'm here for them and in their fort.
And I can attest to that with a patient that is working with you and is doing extremely well. You are so responsive. It is a joy to know that I can focus on my expertise and you're focusing on your expertise, and the patient is getting so many different positive reinforcements from all sides. So that only begets success.
Thank you. It's been great working with him and with you.
Thank you. So we've talked about the inflammatory foods to avoid. Can we give people an idea of what are some anti-inflammatory foods? And I know, again, you're going to say that every person's different, that if I can eat
Sure.
nice needs and you can't, but let's kind of talk about in general, some of the most powerful punches we can get if people want to start incorporating those into their eating.
I think the main thing is if eating healthy, nutrient dense meats, if you can afford grass fed, but probably the most important things to get organic is chicken and eggs, just because of the soy, the GMO, things like that, and do what you can afford. So when it comes to inflammation and reducing it, healthy things you can eat are, when it comes to vegetables, are asparagus, cucumbers, tomatoes, butter lettuce. I do a lot of Greek salads like that, and zucchini, and staying away from like the pastas and the grains, because a lot of times that can cause a lot of gut issues. But
Right.
whatever you like that's crunchy, and if you like a salad, great. But I also say really prioritize your protein, because as we get older, we need more protein. And I think that's one of the biggest myths is we need more protein as we get older, not less, because we want to keep that lean muscle and also our bones as our mineralized protein, and our sheet is healthy fat. So we do want healthy fats. We don't want hundreds and hundreds of grams per day of healthy fat. But if you can do dairy, a grass-fed butter or olive oil or coconut oil or ghee or beef tallow, those types of things, avocado oil. So you can use those as healthy fats. But remember, if you're trying to lose weight, we need a certain amount of fat per day. But if you're eating a lot of fat, your body doesn't know the difference between the fat you're eating and the fat that's on your body. So what would you like to burn for energy? That's something I want people to think about. But there's healthy meats. We can do stir fries. Any type of things that you like to make, we just make them a little bit differently. I have people read the labels. So if there's lots of sugar or fake ingredients in there, there's so many things that you can make so quickly that make just the simple grilled meats and vegetables taste delicious and different every night with a different sauce.
Agreed. I love that. It's pretty simple. Let's dive into protein a little bit.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people already know, but let's make it public. The USDA zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of protein per day is way, way, way underestimating what people actually need. And I've asked you in this specific case, in this person who I know the medical history, I know the labs, I know all the other things. I want 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilo of protein when we're in this building phase, because I'm trying to have the person as absolutely healthy as we can be prior to harnessing their own cells, in this case, bone marrow, to go into the spine. So dispel the thing that says, oh my gosh, too much protein, I'm going to kill the kidneys. There's going to be a major issue. So let's at least get that out on the table.
So this is the thing. There's just another study came out in June talking about how protein actually benefits the kidneys. The kidneys are like a muscle. It does very well with protein. Most people that have issues with kidneys and kidney function, it's not based on protein. That's a small percentage. What does cause issues within the kidneys are sugar and carbs. And one other thing, they're called oxalates. Oxalates are in spinach, kale, kiwis, blackberries, almonds, things like that. And what they are is they look like tiny little shards of glass. And what happens is if you're eating a lot of oxalates, they bind to calcium. And guess what? They end up in your kidney as a kidney stone. But when it comes to inflammation, I was working with a gentleman. He's doing great, but he was able to get off dialysis because we have gotten all the junk out of his where he's staying, and we've increased healthy meats. And there's a lot of studies that are showing that it actually improves kidney health. And when we look at all the people that are having kidney issues, it's insulin resistance. It's usually from people that have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, which is based on their food. It's not like it's something that is not food. So that's where I look at it. And I have study after study after study that are peer reviewed, that are true studies, that are not skewed by anyone who's trying to get their point across with eating certain grains or stuff. But really, it comes down to sugar and carbs. So how do we look at that? Because protein doesn't do it. So I think that's the key for me, is showing them the studies to be able to say that's actually not correct. And that's a big myth that's out there, because they think it's hard to digest and the protein makes it worse. But what's happening is the doctors are seeing that these patients are getting better because they kept getting worse on all the heavy carbs, the processed grains and cereals, and the high sugars. Even skim milk breaks down into sugar. It's different than cream. So where are those little things that are kind of the compound effect that cause issues within the kidneys? So that's a great, great point.
It is really important to just get that information out there. So I appreciate you having the science to back it up and the willingness to work with me when I know that it's that important. The term I use a lot, and I've done a couple different talks on it, specifically are sarcopenia or muscle wasting. And that you look at different studies, whether it's you start at age 30 or you start at age 50, different studies say whatever, you're losing 1% per year or 5% per decade of your muscle mass. And we know that that muscle mass is just so crucial when we're talking about joint pain, spine pain. The muscles stabilize everything.
Yeah.
If you got muscle wasting, you've got these teeny little bones and you've got a whole bunch of fat around your joints. And where's the stability? So you're going to have excess wear and tear. Those muscles are so responsible for holding you up and allowing you to maintain independence. And I think so many people want to be independent well into their 80s or 90s or whatever their goal is. And that's with muscle mass. And what begets muscle? Protein. Absolutely have the protein.
So true. And I think this is kind of another myth, is that it's a pea protein or a whey protein or a rice protein is a complete protein, and it's not. So if anyone who's working with me, they can't count that towards their protein goal. So it's not a complete protein. And a lot of times it breaks down into those high carbs, which how bioavailable are those ingredients when you have all this inflammation? And that's where you kind of look at it too, is you may be thinking you're eating really clean and doing really good, but is it bioavailable to you based on the inflammation it's causing when you eat it, if that makes sense?
Totally does. Yeah. I mean, I read something that really stuck with me. It was like, plants can be very high in protein for the plant. The proteins are for the plant. It's not necessarily bioavailable to the human. So that it kind of flipped my little light bulb on and said, wow, I'm getting this. I'm eating this beautiful plant protein, drinking a shake every day that's got 20 grams in it, but it's pea protein. It's not the same as having an animal protein because I'm an animal.
Mhm.
It's bioavailable to me. So I love that. I like that we've talked about what is anti-inflammatory. We've talked about what is pro-inflammatory, not only from the food standpoint. Let's talk about some of the ramifications of inflammation. Like, look at chronic disease X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, and F, and they're all underlying related to inflammation. You've mentioned a few of them, Carrie. You've talked about diabetes and prediabetes, cardiac disease,
Mhm.
Alzheimer's disease. You also mentioned anxiety and depression. So if I'm kind of starting with the head, anxiety, depression, some of the neurodegenerative disorders, cardiac disease, strokes, the gut issues like the ulcerative colitis, the Crohn's, those chronic inflammatory irritable bowel diseases, the endocrine diseases. I think there are just so many things that we all need to say, yeah, yeah, you guys are talking about inflammation of the joints and the spine, but it begets more than that. It's actually the whole body that benefits from being anti-inflammatory. So I think it's pertinent to anybody.
Well, and you really made a good point. I mean, yes, you're focusing on the joint and the spine, the joints and the spine, but it's the whole body. It's all connected. So if one is not working, something else isn't working too. And you made a really good point when it comes to like Alzheimer's, our mind, how our brain is working. So one thing with when you're burning your own body fat, you release something called ketones. I know a lot of people there's a lot of different misinformation about it. But what it is, you're burning your own body fat for a more efficient fuel for your body. So when people have issues with their brain, whether it's brain fog, Alzheimer's, dementia, it's no longer utilizing the glucose well. And that's a lot of issues with the brain functioning. So if we can get the brain to function better by burning our own body fat and eating in a healthy way where it's using the ketones, which all of a sudden people are remembering things, they're able to. I mean, I'm working with people that have left assisted living homes and are able to go home just by changing what they eat. So, how is that going to affect the whole body and everything? So, people look at it as kind of compartmentalized, where, oh, I have diabetes or I have this. But I mean, I think the number is, I'm trying to remember, I think it's 96 million people have prediabetes, and most of them don't even know that they have it because unless it's over an A1C at 6 or 6.2, nobody really talks about it. So, we're getting all this inflammation and it doesn't just affect it when it hits a 6.1 A1C, which now you're diabetic. It's affecting everything and so looking at it as a whole instead of just I'm inflamed here or I'm having Alzheimer's or I'm having colitis and all those things, it's all connected. And so when we start really reducing inflammation in the smallest steps that we've talked about, it's a lot of times people come to me for weight loss and all of a sudden they don't have joint pain anymore or they don't or they're able to get off their antidepressant or whatever it may be. That's not what I was focused on. I was focused on what their goal is, but you're seeing all the benefits of getting back to a baseline of being less inflammatory. And where is that going to show up for that person that they wouldn't have even expected it? And that's what I really enjoy.
It shows up everywhere, but you've got to go meet the patient where they're at. You meet them with their goal, and they start to have all these other things fall into place or fall off. The weight will fall off, but that's not what their goal was in this case, or they're off of their antidepressants, or their A1C is corrected, or all these things that can happen because they may be focused on this because that's what's motivating them, but we get so much, I guess, bang for the buck. And I love it because I shouldn't say this out loud, but I've had people that have gone through this thing where they have gotten anti-inflammatory and guess what? They don't have any more pain. So guess what? We don't need to do a procedure. Isn't that fantastic? I am thrilled for them, but oh my goodness, because we've addressed the things.
Yes. And I think that's the key is if somebody doesn't is bone on bone and you're helping them, that's still going to be there. But if they're able to go through the procedure and have a better result quicker based on what they're doing, they may have less pain at the beginning. They still need your help. So they're able to go through it with probably a more positive attitude and really being more hopeful that they're going to get an amazing result.
Well, they're sleeping better, their bowel function is better, they're finding that they've got more energy. It doesn't hurt to go to the gym and work out. If we've addressed the hormones as well, which we do, we didn't even dive into it as much. You've talked about the estrogen excess, but the estrogen deficit with menopause is a big deal. And all of a sudden, a woman can go through menopause and every single joint hurts. Well, oh my goodness, what targets are those? The target is the estrogen receptors. So bringing those back up to where they need to be, and that can make a huge difference in their overall response to anything I end up doing with them. So you've mentioned it before, it's a holistic approach, but just having all these tools available and treating the person as a whole, such as you do, it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's definitely personal for me when I coach people because I know that I wasn't getting the information I needed to help myself. And so now I want to be able to help whoever is ready to be helped. And that's where my passion and my fuel comes from, is to help people in a way that they understand.
You can tell, and you're a good teacher too. I appreciate the emphasis on education. Knowledge is power. Education is power. It is empowering to have that information, because then they don't need you. They don't need me. They have all this information. So thank you again for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Tell me, is there something that we've left out? Is there something like, darn it, I'd written on my notes, we want to talk about this, or kind of a conclusion or wrap up? And then I want segue into that and how to find you, how to work with you, how to follow you.
So I think as I'm looking at kind of my notes here, really we want to optimize everybody, and everyone's an individual. And I think some people may come on thinking or be concerned about starting a program thinking that they can't do it because it doesn't work for them. And that's where I am different, is that we are looking at everyone as an individual. It is completely customized and it's doable, and you're not alone. So that's where I really want people to say, if you're even considering it, reach out and let's talk about it. I never try to talk anyone into anything, because if they're not ready, I'm not ready. And so really it's the education. And sometimes people come back a year and a half later and say, hey, I'm ready. I'm like, great. Okay. I'm ready too. But if that's really the key, I just want people to get the best results they can get with you. And they need to do some work, and they need to do it ahead of time. And if they're willing to do the work, they're going to get great results with you anyway. But how much more and how quicker can they get the healing and all the results based on doing their part? And I think that's what I want people, especially your patients, to know, that there is another level. It's not just showing up. It's really being engaged in their own health to get the best results based on you dealing with all the cells that are no longer inflamed. And that's kind of where I'm going to end up, because I want them to get the best results with you.
So do I. And I want them to get the best results with you, because this is a lifetime. It's fantastic. So, Cari, do you have limitations on who can work with you, or are there licensing? Like, I need to have a license in X, Y, and Z states to see patients in X, Y, and Z. Can anybody throughout the whole US work with you?
Yeah. So I'm a certified coach. So I'm not a nutritionist. So I suggest things. And because I'm a coach, I can work really anywhere. And I do most of it is Zoom. If somebody does live here in Phoenix, there's occasionally times that I can see them, but most of the time it's Zoom, because I like to not be distracted when I'm going through all their health and lab works and things like that. And also free consults. They can get on my website. It's my last name, Kamp, K-A-M-P, and it's tidbits. And the reason I chose tidbits is it's a little bit of information every day, just a tidbit of information, and a tidbit, just a small change every day can make huge changes in your life. And so it doesn't have to be hard or overwhelming. And so it's just this little tiny tidbit of information to help them get better every day. And so, yes, it's camptidbits.com. They can go to my calendar and just pop in a date that works for them. And really, it's about seeing where they're at and if they want to go for it. But there isn't anybody I can't see. The only people that, if they're not ready and they're not motivated to make a change, it's not going to work. So I've dealt with people with schizophrenia, to depression, to autoimmune, severe autoimmune. I have a lot of different doctors referring to me just based on that, because they don't have the time to handle. So it's really just whoever's ready, I'm ready.
Wonderful. I love the tidbits part. Thank you so much. Now it's going to be in everybody's mind. But if you didn't write it down or don't remember, it will all be in the show notes. So it's the Facebook page, it's the IG, it's the YouTube, it is the website. So we will have that all down below for you. I want to thank you, Cari, so much for your time and expertise. This is not just tidbits of information. This was a whole bucket of gold, and I loved it. So thank you so much.
Well, I am honored. Thank you so much for asking me. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for all you do for others.
Absolutely. Thank you again. We'll catch up with you soon.
Take good care. Thank you.
If you have knee pain and would like to learn more, I have a worksheet called 5 Things to Do Now to Reduce Your Knee Pain Within a Week. Go to www.kneeboostnow.com to download it for free. I'd love to hear from you, so please like, subscribe, and comment below so I can help you get out of your knee pain.